Hi guys, and welcome to another Skyrim mod preview video. Now this is a bit of a special preview video in that I am previewing a version of a mod that has not been released yet. And the mod is SkyUI and the version is version 4. And so the question is, what have they added this time? Well, actually, maybe some people are asking, what is SkyUI? And if so, welcome to Skyrim modding. You're going to have a great time. But obviously, you've not been here for very long because SkyUI is the single most popular and well-known Skyrim mod. In fact, the most popular, most endorsed mod of any game on the Nexus site, period. And it is a user interface mod. And for example, if I show you the inventory, as you can see, massively changed from the vanilla. A lot more information. For me, this is a far better user interface. I love the small fonts, the extra information. For me, far more familiar for, you know, this type of game, for RPG type of games. The default menu, the vanilla menu, is a little basic for my liking. In version 3, they added a whole new feature, and that feature was the active spell effects. And for version 4, they are doing the same. They are adding a completely new feature, and it is a very much anticipated new feature, the favorites menu. Okay, so let's get right to it. I'm going to press the favorites key. And as you can see, a very different favorites menu. If you've been using the vanilla favorites menu, it's tiny, it has very little information, useful, but you know, doesn't really help if you've got a lot of things on your favorite list. I mean, I don't even have that many things on my favorite list compared to some people, but as you can see, there's a lot. First of all, I just want to say that the favorites menu generally works exactly the way the vanilla one does. You can hotkey things. For the crossbow, for example, if I press 1, it's now hotkeyed to 1. I now have my crossbow selected. Exactly the same as you are used to on the vanilla favorites. So there's no real change in that. The first and the most obvious difference between the menu and the original menu is this sort of categorization, the tabs across the top. Very similar to the inventory menu, there is an all, which gives you everything that you have on your favorites. There is a gear. This is all your equipment, your weapons, your armor. This is aid. Now this is your potions. So this is very useful because I have a lot of potions and use them quite a lot in combat. I don't use any spells. And there is a spell section. This has all your spells and all your powers. Very convenient, very easy, and very instinctive, especially if you've been using SkyUI for any amount of time. The real power behind this favorites menu are the groups. You have these groups 1, 2, 8. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can set up groups of gear. It's fairly easy. As you can see, you've got these little helper messages over here telling you what keys to press. If I press space, it toggles between the normal menu and whichever group I had last selected. Okay, so let's set up some groups to show you how it works. I'm going to take the Vagabond Dusk Armor and I'm going to press the U key. Now the U key for me is currently set as the key that toggles point of view. So the key that does this, when I press the U key, I go to first person, then third person. That's the same key. So I am going to change perspective because I like to look at the character when I'm changing my gear. I will press the U key again and it tells me to select a group between 1 and 8. Do number 1. It then asks me to confirm it with the activate key. For me that's C, for you it's whatever you have set up. And it has now added 1 item to group 1. I press the space key again, I go back to my gear. So I will add the steel boots as well. Confirm. And what else? Scaled braces. Confirm. And I'm now going to add some other items to group 2. Okay, so I now have 3 items in group 1 and 4 in group 2. And I've now got a few choices about how to equip these. I can either, from this menu, click on the 1 and press the 9 key, which is my group use. and it will change. And same that way. Or I can actually press a hotkey. Now the default hotkey for group 1 is F1. There you go. And the default key for group 2 is F2. The first 4 groups are defaulted to F1, F2, F3 and F4. The others are not defaulted to anything. You will have to set them up in the MCM system. It's dead easy. And of course you can change the F1 to F4 if you don't want to use those keys. If you want to use some other key setup, you can. It's dead easy. One thing you will notice though is the helmet. Did you notice it did not unequip? Don't worry. Go along to mod configuration, SkyUI, and favorites groups. I can tell it to unequip the armor and hands if I want to set up groups, but for now I can tell it to unequip the armor before group use. And now what will happen is just before, when I press the F1 key, it will unequip everything and then re-equip the set I want. As you can see, that is very useful, especially if you're the sort of person who likes to have one set of equipment to walk around town and another one for, you know, out in the wilds. This could be very useful for Frostfall. Perhaps you've got a set of gear that's very good at keeping you warm, but you generally like to have no cloak or perhaps no hood when you're walking in a warm, swampy area like this. So you can quickly change without having to spend a lot of time in the menu. Very useful indeed. Okay, so what about weapons and spells? Well, I've now set up group 2 to be detect dead in the right hand, and my left hand to have the glass longsword, and sword and shield in my third group, and dagger and torch for group 4. And if I now go along and press bank, well, let's draw the weapons first. That is bank 2. So as you can see, right hand has got a spell, left hand has got the longsword. If I press bank 3, sword and shield, bank 4, torch and dagger, and once again back to the spell and sword. Very easy. However, what happens if you want to have the spell, this spell, in your left hand? You see, by default, what it does is it puts the first item you've added in your right hand. However, if you want, you can actually change that or even dual wield, and then you tell it to save equip state. My key, the default key for me, is the D key. And you press that, and you see the L and the R are now remembered. It is now remembering to equip this in the left and this in the right. And if I go out, and once again, sword and shield, now go back to spell and longsword. This time the longsword is in the right hand and the spell is in the left hand. This is going to be really useful for people who use multiple spells or dual wielding. It remembers which hand you are using. That is going to be a godsend for a lot of people. And of course you can add powers to the... So for example, Dragon Skin, I can add powers to any of the groups as well. Obviously, for the powers, it's not a big deal to save the equip state because, of course, you can only have one power equipped at any one time. If you actually want to have, for example, the equip slot here only has armor in it and no weapons. And so you will notice that when I exit here and select that, my longsword is still selected. My longsword is still selected. Perhaps I didn't want that. Perhaps I wanted to be unarmed. Go along to mod configuration again. SkyUI. Favorite groups, unequip hands. It's as simple as that. Oh, you can also see here the controls. Group 1 F1 to F4. Group 5 to 8. Undefined at the moment. You define them. It's dead easy to do. Very, very easy to change. But let's see this in action. Here is my sword and shield. And now I'm going to switch to just the armor and unarmed. As you can see, ready to punch people. And you can actually have as many items in a group as you want. You can have spells, you can have powers, whatever you want. All of it's possible. place it in that group, and they will all be there. When you activate it, you'll see all that happening. Basically, what seems to happen is it equips them in the order that they come, one at a time, and equips the very last, except, from the looks of things, the crossbow. So if I equip it again, this time it's got the steel broadsword rather than the bows. So it seems to be all of the items get equipped one after another, except the crossbow, which for some reason got equipped last. So just be aware of that. Chances are the best thing to do is only have items that don't clash. It won't crash the game, but it looks a little weird. And you can also change the icons. Believe it or not, this is how much control you've got over this. You can change the icons here if you wish. If I go along to this one and say I want the icon for dragon skin to be the one shown here, I hover over it and I press the left control key and it will set that icon. It defaults to whichever one you add first, obviously, but you can change it to your... So, for example, that's my sword and shield one. Oops, excuse me. Got to remember to click out of here. And this is my torch. So, you know, I can very quickly look down here and say, oh, this is when I'm using shield with my sword. This is when I'm using torch. It's very, very convenient indeed. And one last option I will mention is about these, the key hints. The key hints, you might find them a little annoying once you get used to the keys. To start with, you'll probably need them, but once you get used to them, they might be a little distracting. Don't worry about it. You can, again, turn those off. SkyUI, General, Favorites menu, Show button Help. Turn that off. Go back to the menus. No hints now, so it's as clean as the vanilla, and a hell of a lot more useful. And don't worry if you are using the categorize favorite menu and you still want to carry on using that. Perhaps you just really do need all of those options. You can use that mod. You probably can use any mod that changes the favorites menu. All you need to do is go along to the mod configuration, SkyUI, Advanced, and as you can see, there's all these options to turn off the version checking for any of the menus. Just deselect the favorites menu one and it will no longer check that the SkyUI menu is present. You have to do the same if you're using an alternative map menu as well. Okay guys, well that's it for this video. I am going to run off and test this mod out some more. I hope the video was useful, and if you are going to try this mod out, I hope you enjoy it. I look forward to seeing you guys next time, and until then, as always, have fun.